What's up, Gaming Rebellion? My name is Dirac, and I'm the Chief Project Manager at GameRevolt. We're here to spotlight indie games, bridge the gap between gamers and developers, and shake up the status quo in the gaming industry. Today I'm kicking off our new segment, GameRevolt Spotlight, where we dive into some hidden gems in the indie scene. This week we're checking out 1000xResist, sci-fi narrative experience from Sunset Visitor. I've had my eye on this game for a while, and now it's time to see what it's all about. Let's jump into the first few hours of gameplay and break down my thoughts. 1000xResist is set in a dystopian future where the last remnants of humanity live in isolated towers, controlled by an all-powerful AI. You play as a clone known as a Watcher, tasked with uncovering hidden truths about the world you live in. The game weaves a narrative heavy on mystery, rebellion, and the existential question of what it means to be human. The core mechanic revolves around exploration and interacting with the environment to solve puzzles while digging deeper into dark history of this futuristic world. Each decision you make brings you closer to unraveling the truth, but also raises more questions about the reality you inhabit. 1000xResist was developed by Sunset Visitor, an indie game development team known for their experimental and immersive storytelling. This team combines their background in narrative-driven design and visual art to create thought-provoking, visual-stunning games. Their goal with 1000xResist is to push the boundaries of traditional gameplay by focusing on the philosophical and emotional experience of the player. With their past works, they've earned a reputation for creating rich, atmospheric worlds, and 1000xResist is their most ambitious project yet. So, what did I expect based on trailers, reviews, or the store description? To be honest, not much. Truth be told, I didn't really do any real research on the game prior to playing it. All I knew was that it was said to have a deep story in a futuristic world. That was enough for me, as my favorite genre of video games are RPGs, simply for a good solid story. I will say it piqued my interest when I heard that there was no combat, but rather it was more of a narrative puzzle game. Looking at the characters who looked like they could easily take down a small army solo, I thought it was interesting to hear that there would be no combat. From the moment I launched 1000xResist, the aesthetic grabbed me right away. I'm a sucker for futuristic worlds, and the game's overall look and feel really stood out. It almost has a VR vibe to it, which I'm not against at all. Right from the first scene, I had no idea what to expect, and that feeling only deepened as the game threw cryptic choices at me early on. It left me a bit anxious, like, what if I'm making the wrong choice? I mean, seriously. Does that say hair to hair? What does that even mean? I'll admit, I was nervous that most of the game's dialogue might be cryptic like that, leaving me to make decisions without fully understanding the consequences until it's too late. You know, like realizing your choices doomed everyone. Classic anxiety moment. But thankfully, that's not the case. After the initial scenes and gameplay, things start to make sense. By the end of Chapter 1, you should have a solid grasp of the world and its mechanics. That's as much as I'm going to say to avoid spoilers. The gameplay itself is pretty straightforward. No overly complicated controls or mechanics to worry about here. You walk, you run, you talk to things, and of course, there's some time warping stuff that plays into the narrative. The simplicity is refreshing, and it keeps you focused on the story rather than getting bogged down by mechanics. It's easy to get into the world without feeling overwhelmed, which I appreciate, especially for a story-driven game like this. Like I mentioned earlier, the aesthetic for 1000xResist really hit home for me. For an indie game, it's beautifully designed. You can tell a lot of care went into crafting this world. The futuristic vibe meshes really well with the gameplay, and it all just feels cohesive. As for the music, at first, I thought it was good, but not groundbreaking. However, as I got deeper into the story, particularly by Chapter 2, I really started to notice how immersive the music came. It fit each scene perfectly and added layers to the atmosphere. To be fair, I'm someone who tends to hyperfixate on one thing at a time, so it took a minute for me to appreciate the full impact of the soundtrack. But once I did, it truly elevated the experience. So, does 1000 Times Resist live up to the expectations? For me? Yeah, absolutely. I went into the game not knowing much, and while I probably should have done a little more research beforehand, I wasn't disappointed at all. The story is deep and fascinating, and it pulls you in the more you play. For some people, certain parts of the narrative may even feel relatable, while others might find parts of it kind of triggering. But either way, it's engaging and thought-provoking. What I really appreciated was how the game slowly reveals its world and story to you. Like any good narrative, you have to take the time to understand the setting, the characters, and the rules of the world before you get to know the why. It's a slow burn, but one that pays off. After each chapter, I found myself saying, maybe just one more, because I needed to see what happened next. I'll be honest, the goal for this first impressions video was to cover just the first couple of hours, but I ended up playing for about 4 to 5 hours before finally cutting myself off, and I absolutely plan on finishing this game. From my perspective, 1000 Times Resist is more than worth the price tag. If you enjoy a good story and prefer games that aren't overly focused on difficult mechanics, like having to defeat impossible bosses just to see more of the plot, this game is definitely for you. I'm not going to give it a score or anything, but if narrative-driven experiences are your thing, 1000 Times Resist is one you should check out. It's available now on Steam, so go grab it. Have you tried 1000 Times Resist? What's your take so far? And what other indie game should I try out next for a first impressions video? Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to our channel, join our Discord, and check out our GameRevolt website, where you can find more information on the projects that we're currently working on. Until next time, happy gaming.
I told you not to be reckless. Watcher, use your brain for once. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Don't you think I know the risk?
I don't think you do.
I can't. I won't ignore what I've seen. We were supposed to end the occupants, not them.
She's going to get you, sister. I know it. When I get to the other side, they'll tell stories of the sister who betrayed us. A sister who was incinerated for her sins.